politics, there are many, many ways of lobbying. At the higher end, you have some very respectable NGOs, and they will be usually focused on a particular policy area.
No one finally knows exactly how many structures are here to influence the opinion of the European Parliament and of the other EU institutions.
Well, I think Armenia has had a lot of, has a lot of experience in lobbying foreign countries. The European Union has a bias because it's a union of Christian nations at the very basis.
Kasper Karampatian, who is a businessman here, a controversial businessman actually, and one would question how he gets such access given his involvement in allegedly in blood diamond trade. I am aware of the fact that he has actually taken members of the European Parliament to Karabakh.
I think the European Union should play a very important role now in the peace project between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
In December 2022, the European Parliament has been shaken by one of the biggest scandals. A comprehensive corruption scheme was uncovered at the highest levels of power, followed by arrests of 4 politicians, including Vice President of the European Parliament, Eva Kaili. She was accused of receiving bribes and attempting to influence political decisions regarding certain countries. Hidden corruption schemes within the walls of the European institution came to light. At the same time, the activities of the Armenian lobby in Brussels have drawn significant attention, particularly in influencing pro-Armenian, anti-Azerbaijani resolutions. At the forefront of these efforts is the European Armenian Federation for Justice and Democracy, led by Kasper Karampatian, an influential ethnic Armenian figure and billionaire. The organization plays a pivotal role in advocating Armenian interests within the European Parliament.
The EU-Armenia Friendship Group, which has been very active traditionally here, is actually, as I understand, kind of part of a larger sort of network. And it's really defined by Kasper Karampatian, who is a businessman here, a controversial businessman actually, and one would question how he gets such access given his involvement in allegedly in blood diamond trade. I live in Antwerp, which is the centre of the diamond trade, and I speak to people there. They know his name, and yes, this, as you know, is a big human rights issue.
According to official sources, the exorbitantly expensive diamonds displayed in the jewelry boutiques of Karampatian are smuggled into Europe from regions in Central and Southern Africa. For many years, a substantial portion of the income of Karampatian, who is known as the godfather of the Armenian mafia in Brussels, has been directed towards supporting the illegal separatist regime formerly active in Azerbaijani Karabakh, as well as towards lobbying activities in Europe. Karampatian openly admitted that just from one dinner in Brussels in 2017, he managed to raise 3.8 million euros to support Armenian separatism.
Lobbying in the European Parliament has always been a subject of intense debate. Representatives from various firms, non-governmental organizations and foundations circulate daily in the corridors of the European Parliament here in Brussels, advocating for their interests. Being a citizen of Greece, Armenia and Luxembourg simultaneously, Kasper Karampatian deliberately chose the capital of the European politics to engage in active lobbying activities which often contradict both the letter and the spirit of the law.
Founded in 2002, the non-governmental organization European Armenian Federation for Justice and Democracy engages daily with elected representatives of European institutions, persistently advocating against the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Azerbaijan.
Կասպար Կարապետյանին պարգևատրել Մեսրոպ Մաշտոց շքանշան։
I am aware of the fact that he has actually taken members of the European Parliament to Karabakh, and I am aware of the fact that at least one of those MEPs, a German MEP, has been quite critical of Azerbaijan subsequently.
The German MEP in question is Martin Sonneborn, a former satirist who serves as a member of the delegation within the EU-Armenia Parliamentary Partnership Committee. In August 2019, together with his wife of Armenian descent, he illegally visited internationally recognized Azerbaijani territory that was then under the control of Armenian separatists. This visit was organized and accompanied by Kaspar Karampetyan. Martin Sonneborn continues to issue statements against Azerbaijan, advocating for Armenian separatist interests. Upon Karampetyan's invitation, representatives of the Belgian parliament André de Bos de Varnaf, Emmanuel de Bock and Pierre Company, as well as Flemish parliament member Georges Pochet, visited the occupied Azerbaijani city of Hankendi at that time. Shortly before this visit, all the mentioned individuals were observed in the company of Karampetyan at the pub in Strasbourg.
Well, I think Armenia has had a lot of, has a lot of experience in lobbying foreign countries. It's very strong in that way, and it has a kind of tradition of lobbying foreign governments. I mean, people here would just simply rely on false information. And they simply rely on this information because of general understanding that okay, this is usually the case. We have these problems. Armenians are the victims because we have this knowledge of a vague knowledge.
In June 2016, Bako Sarkyan, then head of the separatist regime in occupied Karabakh, met with Kaspar Karampetyan in Belgium. During this meeting, they were joined by the member of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, Piet de Bruijn. Piet de Bruijn had visited occupied Karabakh, advocating separatist ideas within PACE and other European structures. In September of the same year, Karen Mirzoyan, the self-proclaimed foreign minister of the former separatist regime in Karabakh, traveled on assignment to Belgium, accompanied by Kaspar Karampetyan. Mirzoyan also met with Frank Engel, a member of the European Parliament from Luxembourg, who is married to an Armenian, Tatev Manukyan. Members of the European Parliament Maria Spiraki, Eleni Theokarios and Manolis Kefalogiannis sponsored an event held in the European Parliament on October 19. The event featured speeches by Edvard Nalbandyan, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Armenia, member of European Parliament Frank Engel, and Aram First, the Catholicos of the Armenian Church of Cilicia.
I am aware of links with, for example, an MEP here who has been lobbying, an MEP who is now in jail, incidentally, central to the Qatargate scandal. And she has been lobbying against Azerbaijan here in the European Parliament, in particular to have the diplomatic visas removed from Azerbaijani diplomats because they are automatically entitled to Schengen visas, not just for Brussels but for Schengen. And she was trying to get those removed, and she also appears to be, as I say, friendly with Karampetyan. The names have been linked with the EU-Armenia friendship group, so it's like a little network.
Former Vice President of the European Parliament Eva Kaili, who was charged in corruption, is well known for her active lobbying for the interests of the Armenian diaspora. When in the fall of 2020, as a result of another Armenian provocation, a 44-day war broke out between Armenia and Azerbaijan, Eva Kaili took a pro-Armenian position from the first days. On the second day of the war, September 28, she called for an immediate investigation in Karabakh, where in her opinion the Armenian people have suffered enough. On October 21st, she again urged the EU to act in the interest of the Armenian people. In November of the same year, Yeva Kaili initiated a statement by members of the friendship group with Armenia, consisting of 33 members of the European Parliament, in which Azerbaijan was accused of allegedly committing aggression against Armenia. In that document, pro-Armenian MEPs called on all international organizations, including the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security, Josep Borrell, to use all means to prevent Azerbaijan's aggression against Armenia.
The links between Qatargate and what we're talking about, the Karapathian, are very clear. I can discuss, but not just this. There's a third tier to this, which takes us back historically a little bit, and that is the world's greatest fraudster, Mukhtar Abyazov. $7.6 billion he stole from a bank in Kazakhstan. He set up a fake NGO here, which is called Open Dialogue Foundation. When we look at Abyazov and we look at the lady who set up Open Dialogue Foundation, one Ludmila Kozlovska, we see photographs of them with Panzeri, Eva Kaili's partner in crime, who set up two NGOs, at least that we know of, very much along the lines of Open Dialogue. It was as if Abyazov had created a business model that worked so well, Panzeri replicated it. And he was working with Kaili, who was working with the Armenians.
On May 4, 2022, Yeva Kaili met in Brussels with Artur Khachaturian, a member of the Armenian parliament from the radical party Dashnak Tsutsun. The visit of the parliamentarian was financed by Karam Petyan, who prior to the visit personally met with Yeva Kaili, presumably providing necessary guiding or instructions.
What happened recently with the Qatargate and influence from Morocco and Mauritania is that some countries are used to a tradition to use money to buy favors, and some members of parliament, or especially former members of parliament, played the same game, and we have adopted rules to diminish the danger that it will repeat, but it's always a danger, and therefore we have the rule now in the European Parliament that every contact with someone from outside, if it's a key contact, has to be put in a special register, and you have to publish it to have transparency on this.
In the European Union, a set of rules governing lobbying exists under the framework known as a Transparency Register. This register serves as a database listing organizations, associations, groups and individuals engaged in activities aimed at influencing EU policy making and decision-making processes.
No one finally knows exactly how many structures are here to influence the opinion of the European Parliament and of the other EU institutions. To give a little bit transparency, a so-called transparency register has been set up. There are tens of thousands of structures registered, Brussels-based and not Brussels-based, but as well embassies, as well law firms for their clients, as well trade associations, professional consultants are here as well.
According to a recent report by the European Court of Auditors, the Transparency Register suffers from weaknesses and information gaps that make lobbying activities less transparent, leading to potential corruption. Jörg Christian Petrovich, a member of the auditing court responsible for the assessment, stated that a range of lobbying interactions with EU lawmakers can be hidden from the public eye, thus reducing transparency and affecting public trust.
The political group is a very important family, the largest one of course being the European People's Party. EPP remains the largest. but the group is everything here, and an ambitious MEP will want to be higher up in that group. Competition for presidencies or co-presidencies or for presidencies of committees. Committees are very important and very heavily lobbied. So it becomes a bit of a battleground to that which you might imagine when you're in the polling booth choosing which party to vote for.
Any elections to the European Parliament result in the political reset and attract new lobbyists into the corridors of power in Brussels. Lobbying itself is not a crime and is entirely legal as long as it remains free from corruption and aligns with European policy.
In 1984, I entered the European Parliament as the first Green. I'm German, and for me lobbying was nothing positively. But I discovered when myself was a member of the European Parliament that you are dealing with so many subjects that you can't be, even if sometimes you try to pretend, be an expert in everything. But important is that the politician should behave like a scientist, looking what you hear in front of you and then evaluate. Should not swallow everything which is said from one side and should not accept any financial advantages.
For certain European politicians, lobbying remains an opportunity to secure financial gain and garner support from influential backers, like Kaspar Karampetyan. However, this comes at the cost of loyalty. Several biased anti-Azerbaijani resolutions, devoid of rationality and conflicting with the interest of the entire European Union, have been brought to vote by Karampetyan's supporters. For instance, the resolution passed on March 13, 2024 in Strasbourg, titled On Closer Ties Between the EU and Armenia and the Need for Peace Agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia, challenges Azerbaijan's territorial integrity and seriously undermines the peaceful negotiation process between Baku and Yerevan. Does this serve the interest of the European Union? Unlikely, but it clearly reflects the position of the document's initiators, backed by Karampetyan himself. Nathalie Louison, a French member of the European Parliament, shortly before the adoption of the resolution, visited Armenia, where she was personally awarded a medal by the foreign minister for her efforts in promoting key issues important to Armenia. Louison has repeatedly advocated for the necessity of French arms exports to Armenia, thereby prioritizing Paris' interests over those of the entire European Union. During her visit to Armenia, Nathalie Louison stated that as a French woman and a member of the government of Macron, who is obviously aware of her visit, she will continue to be a friend of Armenia and the Armenians in the European Parliament, just like many other French parliamentarians. The political party Renew Europe, of which Nathalie Louison is a member, is affiliated with French President Emmanuel Macron. The group emerged from the merger of the Alliance of Liberals and Democrats for Europe with Macron's new Renaissance delegation, making the French delegation the largest within the Renew Europe group. It's not difficult to conclude that some of the anti-Azerbaijani resolutions in the European Parliament are the result of French influence. Another initiator of the resolution, Petros Auštrevičius, who has long been critical of Azerbaijan, has shown support for Armenia even when the country occupied nearly 20% of the territory of its neighboring state, disregarding 4 UN Security Council resolutions demanding the immediate withdrawal of the occupying forces. According to information in the aforementioned Transparency Register, in July 2023, Petros Auštrevičius met with a delegation of Armenian civil society organizations. It's not difficult to speculate that among them were representatives of Karampetyan, if not the Diamond King himself.
Well, concerning lobby groups, there are many ways of lobbying. At the higher end, you have some very respectable NGOs. and they will be usually focused on a particular policy area. Some of them are multinational, some of them more localised, based here in Brussels. There have been examples of crooked NGOs. I could certainly give some examples. A little bit lower down, you may have consultancies, you may have individuals. Sometimes large companies will have their own lobbyists, consultants, and sometimes it's done through a lower level but very effective localised form of lobbying, which is through such things as friendship groups, through intergroups within the Parliament, and these are largely informal, although recognised by the Parliament, and these will be engaging directly with individual MEPs rather than the high-level policymakers.
On November 19, 2021, the European Parliament adopted another statement against Azerbaijan. The author of this statement was Cypriot Lefteris Christoforou, who heads the European People's Party national delegation in the European Parliament. He is often referred to as the pocket deputy of Kaspar Karampetyan. In the European Parliament, Christopher works closely with the Swedish politician Charlie Andres Weimers. Both of them are members of the friendship group with Armenia. Belgian journalist and photographer Michael Ivor possesses a deep understanding of the South Caucasus situation. He consistently emphasized the imperative of acknowledging the enduring consequences of Armenia's prolonged occupation. His critical stance underscores the need for thorough examination of the situation's complexities and implications.
Most of the cultural heritage that I saw was heavily destroyed. It included, of course, historical cities like Shusha, but as well as different cities like Agdam as well, on which I worked heavily during all those years. I went there several times, and I really saw what kind of massive destruction there has been over the years. It was very difficult to change the mindset. It was completely difficult because in the general knowledge, I mean, around this issue is that Armenians are the victims, when in this case they are the authors of the crimes.
Despite compelling evidence of military crimes committed by Armenia, resolutions driven by the Armenian lobby in the European Parliament continue to be put forth, often devoid of meaningful context. In February 2024, the European Parliament adopted a resolution on the implementation of the Common and Security Policy, urging for immediate sanctions against Azerbaijan and the suspension of the Memorandum of Understanding on Strategic Partnership in the field of energy in case of any military aggression by Azerbaijan against Armenia. This biased resolution conspicuously omits any reference to Azerbaijan's cultural heritage devastated during years of occupation, including numerous mosques and 3 Orthodox churches. Instead, it expressed concern over Armenian heritage in Karabakh. This situation raises questions about why democratic Europe appears to disregard these documented facts.
Well, it's hard to tell. I think it has also a lot to do with the European history. You know, there is a bias of European. The European Union has a bias because it's a union of Christian nations at the very basis. I mean, there's a kind of blindness of the reality because your own values are based on this intrinsic kind of Christianity, and whenever you want to understand the other side, if the other side is, let's say, more of a majority of Muslim confession, then you'll find it hard to believe the information you gather from the other side. If you see how difficult it has been for the European Union to enlarge to Turkey, or it's been difficult to enlarge to the Balkan states, which are not Christians.
Armenians actively leverage religious themes in advancing their lobbying activities. On November 10, 2021, through the efforts of Kaspar Karambetyan, chairman of the Armenian National Committee of Europe, the EU-Armenia Friendship Group resumed its activities in Brussels. The Armenian National Committee of Europe, under the influence of the Dashnaks, openly states that one of its primary objectives is to expand Armenia's network of allies and promote separatist ambitions in the unrecognized entity known as Artsakh. The friendship group with Armenia in the European Parliament, led by Lucas Furlas, a Cypriot known for his outspoken anti-Azerbaijani positions. Previously, this role was held by Eleni Teokarios, a former MEP representing the Greek Cypriot community. During her electoral campaigns, she faced allegations regarding the transparency of her political party's financial sources. In 2018, she was designated persona non grata in Albania due to statements questioning the country's territorial integrity. On September 28, 2018, Armenian separatists conferred upon her the title the Honorary Citizen in recognition of her perceived contributions, presenting her with a valuable necklace adorned with a gold ingot. It's quite intriguing to know details from the early life of Kaspar Karambetyan, who spent his youth in Beirut. The future billionaire actively participated in the activities of Armenian extremist organizations, including Asala, which is well known for its ties to the Armenian radical party Dashnak Tsutsum. Therefore, it's unsurprising that the official website of the European Armenian Federation for Justice and Democracy emphasized heightened attention to issues concerning Armenian communities in the Middle East.
Karambetyan himself, he has his own agenda. As I say, he's reputedly involved in some very dubious activities here in Belgium and in the diamond trade generally. I think that the misrepresentation of Armenia's position, Armenia's agenda, I can see that it's a misrepresentation, and people like Karambetyan would be there, of course, waiting to give me that input. He's doing his job, basically. He's doing it very well. The question is that a job that should be done without control, without oversight here in a place as important as the European Parliament, which now, of course, is more important than ever because in recent years the European Parliament was given final oversight over all legislation.
The work and the competences of the European Union and therefore of the European Parliament are based on our quasi-constitution of what is called the Treaty of Lisbon. And more subjects have added to this list, including, for example, trade, a lot of environment. And the role of the European Parliament has increased in the decision-making. Therefore, certainly, there will be an increase in attempts from the outside world to influence what the future members of Parliament will think and act.
In this context, another significant figure is Vardan Sirmakis, an ethnic Armenian who serves as the director of the Swiss company Frank Müller Group. He has garnered attention for his extensive involvement as a prominent investor in separatist movements and has been linked to the exploitation of gold deposits in Karabakh over an extended period. Simultaneously, these individuals served as a major shareholder of Armed Swiss Bank and Artsakh Bank. Due to Sirmakis' connections in Switzerland and the European Parliament, Artsakh Bank became a participant in SWIFT International from 2003 and a branch of the international payment system Europay MasterCard from 2005 onwards. Sirmakis allocated investments into various projects supported by Armenian diaspora organizations, such as European Friends of Armenia and the Highest and All Armenian Fund. Operating without authorization from Azerbaijani governmental bodies, he conducted gold mining activities not only in the previously occupied territory of Kalbajar, but also expressed interest in the Gazılbulaq deposit. These actions precipitated a protest by Azerbaijani environmental activists, along the Lachin-Kankendi road in 2023, prompting immediate discontent amongst Yermak's European counterparts. During this period, Marina Kalyuran, chair of the delegation for relations with the South Caucasus and former foreign minister of Estonia, as well as a member of the friendship group with Armenia, criticized Azerbaijan. She expressed significant concern regarding the closure of the Lachin road.
I read one interesting information that Brussels even created a special mechanism for supporting the Armenian friends of the European Parliament, among which is Vardan Sirmakas, a Swiss citizen of Armenian origin who plundered gold mines in Karabakh.
I don't really know, but it would not surprise me in the slightest. Remember that in the Parliament, the word of the MEP is sacrosanct is the wrong word, but they have a great deal of influence over what goes on, particularly in the context of a group, and money being given to organisations that possibly somewhat undesirable would not surprise me. I remember uncovering back in 2004 a budget line in the European Commission which turned out to be unaccountable money being given every month to the Palestinian Authority. Nobody was told about this.
Despite the efforts of the Armenian lobby, Azerbaijan is positioned as a crucial energy and transport partner for Europe. Azerbaijan ranks among the top 5 leaders in pipeline gas supplies to Europe and plays a significant role in ensuring the energy security of the European Union.
So you based in Berlin, let's say, also the heart of Europe, Germany. So what are the expectations of the European Union itself from Azerbaijan in the future operation of the Middle Corridor?
Yes, for the European Union, it's very important that we have got resilient and diverted transport routes. So there is one over the sea, as we had all the time, and but we also need the routes via land, either to connect western part of China to Europe and the southeast of Europe. But on the other hand, we see a lot of economic growth and sourcing of raw materials and ready products from the Central Asian states and also from South Caucasus. And Azerbaijan has a very important role in that, either as a transit country and also as a production country. And not to forget, of course, today we need your fossil energy. So that was the reason in 2022 Mrs. von der Leyen had been in Azerbaijan.
In recent geopolitical developments, the Middle Corridor has emerged as increasingly pivotal, spanning Central Asia and the South Caucasus to link China with Europe. During the 5th Balkans Black Sea Forum, the European Union expressed interest in developing the Middle Corridor to address geopolitical challenges and enhance supply chain security. European and international financial institutions have shown readiness to allocate 10 billion euros towards developing transportation infrastructure in Central Asia.
I feel very positive about all the initiatives you are doing already with rebuilding Nagorno-Karabakh, of course, but also you invested in the new port in Alat in the late 2010s, and there are plans to grow that again, to make it bigger, and so I'm very positive that on the Azerbaijan side everything is working. First, the private sector is asked to do these things because it's important, there's the demand, and so there will be business. But to induce that investments, there should be some more or less investment security.
Regional stability is a critical factor for the successful operation of the Middle Corridor, which among other benefits holds potential advantages for Armenia through the prospective launch of the Zangezur Corridor. Armenia has committed to unblocking all transportation arteries in the region as per a trilateral statement dated November 10, 2020, which marks the end of the 44-day war. Full implementation of these agreements ensures peace, attracts investments and benefits all parties involved. However, Armenian lobbyists like Kaspar Karampetyan accustomed to exploiting chaotic situations, stand to lose in this context.
Yes, that's very important to have not only one track via Georgia to Turkey, but also on this corridor near the Iran border to Nachivan and then to Turkey. That's very important because having two is always resilience that's needed. On the other hand, the Georgian route is sometimes difficult during winter times because of huge amount of snow. And but you will also want to go to Turkey. The way via Iran has got two problems. One is that we also have sanctions with Iran, some problems with the Iran. People don't want to put their goods through the Iran. And the other hand is that the rail system ends up at the Lake of Van in Turkey, which is 130 kilometers. You have to do a ferry as well, which is not very optimal. So logistics-wise, it would be really great if this corridor would be recreated, because still the track is missing there.
It's logical that the advancement of new transportation routes serves the collective interests of Europe. However, as our investigation reveals, controversial figures like Kaspar Karampetyan persist in operating unchecked within the European Parliament, expending considerable resources to obstruct the establishment of peace in the South Caucasus. Karampetyan represents not just a singular instance, but rather exemplifies a broader spectrum of Armenian lobbying activities. Nonetheless, Europe retains a contingent of policymakers who are unafraid to engage with the realities of the conflict and the enduring repercussions of Armenia's prolonged occupation.
Well, to be honest, I tend to be quite optimistic, so I hope the situation will be more documented in time. What is essential, I think, is that for many years the territories under Armenian occupation were difficult to visit. So now that it's possible to travel there via Baku, there's an international airport, you can show the reality.
I think the European Union should play a very important role now in the peace project between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So from my point of view, I'm working in logistics and I want to do logistics. We need peace, we need connections, we need roads, we need railway, and that's the most important thing there should be. And I always hope that politics is doing more, but on the other hand, private sector can do a lot.
The conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia has been settled, with Azerbaijan's territorial integrity and sovereignty fully restored. The European Union has the potential to assist in achieving a long-awaited peace agreement, contingent upon a clear-eyed appraisal of the situation and preventing individuals who seek to escalate tensions from influencing European institutions, including the European Parliament.